Autumn vibes, am I right? Am I going to burn my whole room down by putting this here? Perfect. Hi everyone, it's Caris and welcome to my corner of the internet where I talk about books and other things that I enjoy. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the anti-TBR tag and talking about all the popular books that I'm just not bothered about reading. So I was actually tagged to do this by the wonderful Lily from Lily Eleanor Reads, and this tag was created by Nicole and her books, and I will leave a link to both of the creators in the description. I would definitely recommend that you go over and check both of them out and watch both of their versions of this tag to see what their answers were. As the title of this tag suggests, it's just a series of questions that relate to reasons why you might not want to read a particular book. Before I get into it, I just want to say that I'm sure a lot of these books are really good. If I don't like them, 99% of the time it's because I just don't think that it's something that I'm going to enjoy. I completely understand and appreciate that these can also be really amazing books and really work for other people. That's all I'm going to say on that, so let's just get on with the tag. The first prompt is a popular book that everyone loves but you have no interest in reading. The longer I thought about this question, the more things I seem to be able to come up with, so I've got a few things here across a variety of different genres, and in most cases the reason why I'm not interested in it is because I just don't think that the genre or the topic that the book deals with is something that would appeal to me. So the first one is Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is one that I've heard talked about quite a bit this year. It seems to be on lots of people's summer TBRs. From what I have heard and my understanding of this book, I believe that it focuses very heavily on a romance, and romance stories typically don't tend to be the sort of things that I ever reach for. I'm not sure if there are lots of other elements to this story or not besides romance, but just everything that I've heard about it has made me feel like it's not something that I'm gonna give past like a 3-star rating, and because there are so many other things that I want to read that I think I would really enjoy, it's just not something that I am looking to read anytime soon. Another book that fits this prompt would be Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book is absolutely massive and it's fantasy. I'm only just really starting to find my way with fantasy, so unless I suddenly find myself getting really sucked into the genre and literally going from 0 to 100, I just don't see myself ever reading this book. Another one that I've seen talked about quite a lot is Cersei by Madeline Miller. This deals with mythology, I believe, and mythology is not really something that I've ever really been massively interested in. I feel like maybe if I did a little more research, the topic and field of study as a whole might be something that interests me, but until that happens, and it's not something that's like imminent in my mind thinking that I must do, I can't see this one being on my TBR. And the final thing that I had on my list is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I read Normal People last year and I did enjoy it, or at least at the time I think I gave it a 4 stars, but now thinking back I have very like meh feelings about it. Like I don't really care about it, and even after reading that, I didn't instantly think, oh my gosh, I must pick up Conversations with Friends. Prompt number 2 is a classic book or author that you have no interest in. I have 2 answers for this, and both authors are people that I've read from before and don't really want to pick up any more of their work. The first is Virginia Woolf. I did really enjoy A Room of One's Own, but I also had to read To the Lighthouse for uni and I just hated it. I couldn't get into it. To be honest, I didn't really understand what was going on, and because of that, that's really put me off reading any more of Virginia Woolf's fiction in the future. The second answer is another person that I read from at uni, and that is James Joyce. I had to read The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man for the same module, I think, as what I had to read To the Lighthouse for, and again hated it. Could not follow the plot at all. I found the writing so difficult, and I feel like other ones of his are even more difficult to read, so it's not anything that I think I ever want to go about tackling. Prompt number 3 is an author that you have no interest in, either because you just don't think their work appeals to you or because they're problematic and you don't want to support them. So my first answer for this is Sarah J Maas. I've never read a Sarah J Maas book, and honestly I've never been interested in doing so. To be honest, I can't really tell you what her books are about, which seems mad because I know they're so popular, and I'm sure loads of people watching this video will have picked up one of her books if you're like into booktube and books in general. But despite how many booktube videos I've watched over the many years that I've been watching booktube, I honestly have no idea about the plot of any of them. I think my thing is I'm very good at like switching off. If I'm not interested in a certain book, like it will just go right over my head, and I think I've always known that Sarah J Maas's books are not for me. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does or not. Because I've never had any interest in her books, I have never like followed her on Twitter or really followed along with any discussions about her, but I think I have heard stuff that suggests that she's done like quite problematic things before, or like her books were criticised for lack of diversity. I'm sure there are probably loads of people that I could also use for this question. To be honest, a lot of the authors that I'm mentioning for the other categories I have no interest in reading either. Prompt number 4 is an author who you might have read a few books from, but you've basically just decided that they're not for you. There are a couple of people that sprung to mind for this question. The first was Cassandra Clare. I mean, I haven't read a lot of her books. I've read one. I read City of Bones back in 2012 maybe. It was before I had my booktube channel the first time. Because it was so long ago, I can't really remember how I felt about it at the time. I think I enjoyed it to some degree, but I don't think I thought it was amazing. But obviously Cassandra Clare has been a very influential author for a lot of people. I know a lot of people have sort of grown up with and have loved the whole Shadowhunter world that she's created, but it's never been something that's appealed to me. I've never owned the books, I've never looked further into reading any more of the series, and I'm happy with that. Similar to Sarah J Maas, to be honest. I'm happy not going there and happy just living obliviously to this whole world. And the second author that I wanted to mention here is Kristoff. I read Illuminate a while ago as well, like when it first came out, and I just really didn't enjoy it, to be honest. It was one of my most disappointing reads in the year that I read it, and I have no interest in carrying on with the rest of the series. I did look into some of Kristoff's other books at the time, but none of them appealed to me at all. Prompt 5 is a genre that you have no interest in reading from, or one that you tried to get into and couldn't. So until fairly recently I honestly would have said fantasy, but I don't want to say that because I really enjoyed the Poppy War. I'm really excited for the rest of the books in that series, and I honestly think that there are some levels of fantasy that I can get on board with and can enjoy. I think maybe not like super high fantasy or stuff that like drops you in it straight away, but I feel like I need to explore, and I'm quite excited to go on that journey. Aside from that, I think sci-fi has been something that's never appealed to me, and unlike fantasy, there aren't really any sci-fi books that have piqued my interest enough to want to try it out further and see if I had just had bad experiences with it in the past. So I think that would be my main answer for this question. Also, as I mentioned before, romance. Obviously I will read books with romance in them, but straight up romances, just I'm not interested. They never hold my attention. I just find it so boring. Like, I think there are so many more interesting things than romance. So there we are. Those two genres. Imagine me reading a sci-fi romance. No. Never gonna happen. Next is a book you bought but will never read, and let me just direct you here to this. I mean, let's move Angelica out the way. This selection of penguin drop caps. So I'll just pull out the first one, if they will even come off the shelf. Okay, that obviously wasn't the first one, but these are the penguin drop caps. They're really beautiful books, taking you through the alphabet. Each letter of the alphabet is assigned the letter of an author's surname. So A is for Jane Austen, this is L, this is for Chang-Rae Lee. The series also takes you through the colours of the rainbow, and they're just so pretty and so beautifully done. However, I am very unlikely to actually read these. So the first reason why I'm probably not going to read these is because while there are some of them that I'm really genuinely interested in, there are a lot that I don't know anything about and I haven't really heard anything about, and there are so many other classics that I have and that I own that I would prioritise over these. But the other reason why I don't think I'll read these particular books is they really deteriorate when you read them. So I read, is this going to focus? I read this version of Jane Eyre when I was doing my degree. The spine is like super faded compared to the front, like you can see the difference there, and the lettering has really rubbed off in lots of places. I don't want that to happen to the rest of them, so even if I read the stories in a different format, I'm probably never going to read these particular editions of them. The 7th prompt is a series you have no interest in reading or a series that you DNF'd. And again, I have a few answers for this. As I mentioned, Illuminate is one that I have no interest in continuing on any further with. The Shatter Me series by Tahara Murphy was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this prompt. I know it was really popular a while ago when the books were still coming out, but for me, I read the first one, I didn't like it. I honestly feel like I didn't have a clue what was going on. Like, I read it, but asked me what it was about, even the day after I finished it, couldn't tell you. Other popular series I probably will never read. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater doesn't really appeal to me. And finally, The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I read the first one, The Bone Season, when I was 18, and I liked it somewhat at the time, but I think I was very, very confused. Even though I have the second book and have them both signed by Samantha Shannon, I just don't think that I will ever carry on with the series. Honestly though, no hate to Samantha Shannon. I know I've mentioned her for 2 questions. She was so lovely when I met her, but I just feel like she writes a level of fantasy that is sort of beyond what I'm interested in. And the final prompt for this tag is a new release that you have no interest in reading. This is actually the question that I struggled with the most, because I think as I'm fairly new back to booktube and finding my feet again with what sort of books I enjoy, I honestly haven't really been following along too closely with new releases, and the ones that I can think of off the top of my head are things that I'm genuinely interested in picking up. So the one that instantly came to my mind for this tag is Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer, the story of Twilight from Edward's perspective. I didn't even finish reading Twilight, the series, the first time. I told all my friends at school that I had, but I didn't, because honestly, I just pretended that I liked it so that I could fit in with everyone, because finally reading was cool again and I could do something that I enjoyed without like people thinking I was weird. So yeah, I read the first 3 books for that reason, pretended that I really liked it when actually I didn't care about it at all. So I don't have an interest in reading the same story again from a different point of view. Although 11-year-old me, who signed the petitions online to get Midnight Sun published, would be so happy that it's finally come out. So honestly, I do thank myself in part for that happening, you know. If it wasn't for those petitions, I'm sure it wouldn't have. So those were all of the questions for this tag. I would love to know your thoughts on any of the books that I've mentioned, or your thoughts on any of the questions. If you've got any different answers you want to share, feel free to do so. I can't think of anyone who I want to tag off the top of my head, and I'm not sure who's already done this, but I may well tag some people in the description. But other than that, that is it for today's video. I hope you're all keeping safe and staying well, and I will see you again soon for another video. Bye!